We voted. You're paying for my daughter's birthday party. That was what my sister said to me after I asked her why she used my card. Specifically, the authorized card I had opened for my mom, to pay nearly $4,000 for her daughter's birthday party. My parents then took her side and called me selfish, saying I didn't know how to make sacrifices for my family after I made a scene about it. After that, I canceled the authorized card and worked with the bank to get the money back. Follow my story, and let me know if I was wrong for taking the money back. Hello everyone, my name is Roland. I'm 29 years old and currently a senior software engineer at a tech company in Oregon. I've been working here for 7 years now, partly because the compensation is well worth the effort I put in and partly because this was the place that gave me a shot with a part-time job when I was just a freshman in college. With a post-tax income of over $150,000 a year, and since I'm still single, I've bought myself a small house and a decent car to get to work every day. My career is in a good place, but my personal life feels lonely. I only hang out with a few close friends and occasionally grab dinner with some coworkers. At this point, I'm sure some of you are wondering, what about your family? The truth is, I did have a family. I was happy with my parents, older sister, and niece, whom I loved like my child. But I was the one who cut myself off from them. It happened on my niece's 6th birthday. About a year ago, on a weekday, I think, I was working through some tasks at my desk when my phone started buzzing. It was a call from Alice, my older sister. I let it ring until the second tone before I swiped to answer. As soon as she heard my voice, she jumped straight to the point, her tone a little rushed. Roland, Lydia's birthday is this weekend. Make sure you come. I replied, got it. That was it. No extra reminders, no small talk. She hung up right after. A couple of minutes later, a text came in with the time and location of the party. The moment I saw the name of the restaurant, I paused. I knew the place. It was one of the most upscale venues in town, known for hosting all-inclusive kids' parties, with buffet options, a private play area, entertainers, and even gift bags for the little guests if you went for the complete package. With nearly 20 people invited, I figured the cost must have been at least $3,000. Without giving it too much thought, I put my phone down and returned to work. Not even 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was my mom. She reminded me to show up for Lydia's birthday and not to forget to bring a gift. After the call ended, I smiled to myself. That's just how my mom is. Always the one to make sure everyone's taken care of, always thoughtful in her way. That weekend, around 5 in the evening, I showed up at the restaurant Alice had texted me about earlier. In my hands was a gift I had wrapped the night before. A toy cooking set with dolls, pots and pans, a toy electric stove, and a little pink apron. I knew it wasn't the most expensive gift out there, but for a kid like Lydia, who loved cooking, I was sure she'd be thrilled. When I entered the private party room, I saw a few people had arrived. Relatives from my mom's side, some cousins, and both of my parents were there. As soon as Lydia spotted me, she ran out from a corner of the room, still holding a piece of cake in her hand, and shouted, "Uncle Ro!" Then she wrapped her arms around me like we hadn't seen each other in forever. I bent down and gently patted her head. I told her, "I've got a present for my little chef right here." I handed her the box. Lydia dropped straight to the floor and excitedly tore through the wrapping paper. When she saw what was inside, she gasped, "Oh my gosh, it even has a mini oven. Uncle, this looks just like the one in the video I watched yesterday." Seeing her smile, I nodded and smiled back. I thought that moment was enough. But not even 30 seconds later, I heard Alice's voice from the dinner table. Calm, even, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're a senior software engineer, make good money, and get your niece a toy set that costs a few dozen bucks?" I looked up at her. She was still holding her drink, eyes fixed on the table, like she was making an observation. Nothing more. Then my dad chimed in, voice low and slow. "She's right. You're her uncle, Roland. That kind of gift. People might look at it the wrong way." And then my mom added, in her usual gentle, instructive tone, "You don't have to spend a fortune, but it wouldn't hurt to put in a little more thought for a child's birthday, Roland." I stood there, my hand still resting on Lydia's shoulder. No one said a word in my defense. Some pretended not to hear. Some just stared down at their plates. I nodded and, with a steady voice, said, "All right, I'll be more thoughtful next time." At that moment, I thought about walking out. But it was Lydia's special day, and I didn't want to ruin it, so I stayed quiet and nodded. Still, inside, it felt like I had just been pushed out of the celebration I'd made an effort to be part of. After the greetings, everyone slowly settled into their seats. The party started with a birthday song, with the kids singing along to a video playing on the big screen. Lydia wore a paper crown, blew out the candles on a two-tiered purple cake, and beamed as everyone clapped and cheered. I sat at the far end of the long banquet table between two cousins from my mom's side who I barely kept in touch with anymore. They chatted away about family stuff, their kids' schools, and how mortgage rates were climbing. A while later, Alice stood up and clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. She looked around and spoke loudly. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Lydia's birthday. It only comes once a year, so this time, I wanted to make it a bit more special. Give her a memory to hold on to." Everyone clapped. A few even whistled in support. Then she glanced over at me and, still smiling brightly, added, "And a special thanks to Uncle Roland, who's always there for her, even with his packed schedule." I smiled slightly and gave a slight nod in return. I knew that line was just for show. The look in her eyes didn't match the words of gratitude. Then dinner was served: honey-roasted chicken, salad, kid-friendly pizza, spaghetti, soda, and snacks. The party itself felt cozy. People at the table called out to one another, passed dishes around, swapped old stories, and laughed out loud at memories I couldn't even recall being part of. About 30 minutes later, the party moved into the part the kids had been waiting for the most. The music in the room got louder, the lights dimmed a little, and then through the door, a clown in a bright, colorful outfit walked in. The kids squealed with excitement. Lydia jumped out of her seat, laughing, and dragged along two of my cousin's kids. One looked about 5, the other maybe 3. I couldn't remember their names, only that they showed up at every party like it was a given. The clown started making balloon animals, twisting them into swords and poodles, then did a magic trick where he pulled scarves from thin air. The kids erupted in cheers and applause every time he did something new. I sat quietly at the back, watching it all like an audience member at a show I never bought a ticket for. After the performance, a staff member wheeled in a small table full of party favors. Each child got a personalized gift bag filled with candy, stickers, small plastic toys, and a coupon for their next visit. Right then, I looked around the room and took everything in. Nothing was missing. Balloons covered the ceiling. A banner with Lydia's name hung front and center. A photo corner decorated with a MasterChef Junior theme, and even a dedicated photographer going around capturing every moment. At that point, I knew this party wasn't cheap. The private room rental, the theme decorations, the two-tier cake, the clown, and the custom gift bags would easily add up to over $3,000. Maybe closer to $4,000 with the photographer and the private play area included. My family wasn't poor, but nobody was exactly swimming in money either. Not to the point of throwing a party like this without careful planning. So I started guessing. Maybe Alice came into a large sum recently? Maybe Mom pitched in? Or maybe my brother-in-law had been doing well in business lately. At that moment, I had no clue who was footing the bill for the party. Not until 30 minutes later. About 30 minutes later, once the kids started getting tired and the adults had moved on to casual conversations, I saw Alice get up from the table. She picked up her small purse and walked briskly toward the front counter. I was a little surprised. A thought crossed my mind. Maybe I was right. Perhaps she just got a big bonus or Mom gave her some extra money. Either way, I'd honestly feel relieved if she covered the cost of today's party. And truthfully, I'd be happy for her. But not even a minute later, my phone buzzed. I looked down. The screen showed a notification from the bank. "You've just made a payment of $3,842.20 at Bounce N Bites Playhouse." I froze for a few seconds. Then I opened my banking app and checked every detail. The card used wasn't my primary one, but a secondary one. Specifically, I gave Mom the one almost 3 years ago, so she could use it for household bills like electricity, water, and gas. I remembered clearly what I told her the last time we talked about it. "Mom, this card's just for household stuff. Okay? Let me know if you don't need it anymore, and I'll cancel it." Since then, I haven't seen any strange activity, only regular bill payments. But now, that card had just been swiped to pay for the entire birthday party, and I had no idea. I looked up toward the front desk. Alice was still there, signing something on a receipt. Next to her was a restaurant staff member, smiling and nodding. Right then, a rush of questions hit me all at once, bubbling up like air in water. Should I walk over? Should I ask what the hell just happened? Should I interrupt everything, demand they cancel the charge and make them explain? Or should I stay quiet and wait for someone to bring it up? Or maybe no one planned to say anything at all. Maybe, to them, this was already a done deal. I glanced over at Lydia, still sitting on the floor, happily playing with the toy cooking set I brought. She had no idea. She smiled and held up a plastic pot, turning to the boy beside her and saying, "It's ready. Eat up." And I just stood there, phone in hand, that bank notification still glowing on the screen, feeling like my family had just blindsided me for the first time. Right after that, I stepped out from the corner of the room and walked straight over to Bryce, Alice's husband. He was chatting with two of our cousins from Dad's side, still holding a half-finished beer. I stood right in front of him and said, my voice low but clear, "Bryce, could you take Lydia and those two kids outside? Walk them around, maybe to the play area. I need to handle something here, and I don't want the kids watching grown-ups argue." He froze for a second, furrowed his brows like he didn't understand, then glanced toward Alice, who was still at the counter, almost like he was waiting for some cue. But I didn't look away, and the serious expression on my face must have said enough, because after a moment, he gave a quick nod. A few minutes later, the kids were led out of the room. I turned back and faced my parents. Just seconds later, Alice returned to the table, her wallet still in hand. I looked directly at her and said, keeping my tone steady, "You used my card to pay. Why did you do that without asking me first?" She set her wallet down, crossed her arms and replied, "Because we took a vote. You were chosen to cover the birthday party for my daughter." I stared at her. A vote? Who voted? When? This time, my mom chimed in, her tone as sweet and casual as if she were talking about the weather. "Well, you're single. You make good money. And honestly, no one else in the family could afford a party like this. Your sister wanted to give Lydia something special to remember. We all thought it made sense for you to take care of it." I swallowed hard and asked her, "It's her daughter's party, not mine. If you wanted me to help, you should have asked. Instead, you used my card without saying a word." At that moment, my dad set his drink down and said in a dry, flat voice, "You can afford it. Why are you making such a big deal? A few $1,000s isn't much with what you earn." I turned back to Alice, trying to keep it together. "Do you not see anything wrong with this?" She answered right away, "No, you don't have kids. You don't pay for tuition, insurance, or daily expenses like we do. You live alone and earn a lot. Why shouldn't you contribute something to the family? It's just once a year." At that point, I had nothing left to say. I walked out the door, leaving behind everyone at that birthday party, with all of them watching me go. I remember when I was a kid, when the family needed to spend money on something, my parents always asked my sister first, "Have you bought your textbooks yet? Which prom dress are you considering? And how many friends are you inviting to your birthday this year?" And I would usually stand nearby, listening. That's how I learned. My turn would always come after. Most of my school clothes back then were end-of-season sale items Mom picked up. They weren't bad, but they were always the just enough kind of choice. My backpack was basic. My sneakers were never the newest model. I never had birthday parties. Just a small meal on the day Dad happened to have off. Maybe a few slices of pizza and a chocolate cake from Walmart. No balloons, no friends over, no birthday candles. Strangely enough, I was always okay with it. I never asked for more. Not because I didn't want more, but because I knew if I asked, Mom would worry, and Dad would go quiet and change the subject. That's why I learned early on to stay silent. I didn't ask for things. I didn't want to add more pressure to a house that already felt stretched thin. Back then, I thought it was a small sacrifice to keep the peace. But after my niece's birthday party that day, I realized something. Maybe from the beginning, I had been taught to live with the idea that there was never really a part meant just for me. When I reached adulthood and went off to college, I was lucky enough to get into software engineering, the field I had loved since I was a kid. Back then, my family wasn't in a good financial place, so I chose to take out student loans to afford school. I didn't overthink it. As long as I got to study, I believed I'd figure out the rest. From my first year, I started working part-time. During the day, I was a teaching assistant for an intro class. At night, I worked the counter at a bakery near the dorms. When I had time on weekends, I'd install Windows or fix laptops for other students to earn more. I can't remember how many cups of watered-down coffee I drank, how many late-night fast food meals I scarfed down at 11 p.m., or how many times I passed out on a lab desk. But I remember one thing. I never once asked my family for extra money. There was only one exception. Sophomore year, my laptop died right before midterms. I texted my mom, saying, "My computer won't power on. I think I'll have to get it fixed." That night, she transferred me $300, along with a short message, "Keep going. We don't have much, But your dad and I believe in you. I read that message in silence. I didn't reply right away. I knew that sending me that money wasn't easy for her. And I also knew that I had no excuse to complain after that moment. No matter how tired I got, I had to keep going. And then I remembered 3 years ago. At the time, my mom had just retired. My dad was still working part-time at a bookstore near home. The pay wasn't much, but he said it kept him from getting bored. One evening, my mom called me. Her voice was tired, but she kept it gentle, like always. The electricity bill this month is high. I don't even know why. After she said that, I didn't ask questions. I didn't try to break it down or offer advice. I opened my laptop, logged into my account, and set up a supplementary credit card for her. Along with the card, I included a small handwritten note that said, "This card is just for household bills. Okay? Electricity, water, gas. If you ever stop needing it, let me know, and I'll cancel it." And for the next 2 years, everything seemed fine. There were no unusual charges. Until that night at the birthday party, when I looked down and saw the message saying over $3,000 had just been charged. As I sat there staring into the dark, still room, the sound of my phone's bedtime alarm snapped me back to reality. I reached over to turn it off, then immediately opened my banking app. The $3,842.20 transaction remained, sitting boldly among charges I never authorized. I went to the card management section and scrolled down. There it was, the supplementary card under my mom's name. The same one I'd issued 3 years ago with just one simple instruction: only use it for household bills. Without hesitation, I tapped Lock Card. A confirmation screen popped up, asking if I was sure. I didn't hesitate. 3 seconds later, the status changed to Deactivated. And with that, I knew exactly what I needed to do in the morning. Not to ask for the money back, but to let them know I wasn't brushing it off this time. Not because of the amount, but because of how they had treated my silence for all these years. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because of an alarm, but because I hadn't been able to sleep properly all night. I made myself a cup of black coffee, then opened the family group chat, the one that, for years, only lit up when someone needed something from me. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I typed the message slowly, sentence by sentence, and this is what I wrote. The $3,842.20 transaction at Bounce and Bites Playhouse was made using the supplementary card I issued to Mom, which I had clearly stated was to be used only for household bills. Giving that card to someone else and using it without my consent is completely unacceptable. I was not asked. I was not informed. That is not what family understanding means. I am requesting that the full amount be repaid within 3 days, transferred to my account. This is not a suggestion. This is a clear demand. I'm also informing you that the card was deactivated last night. Any further transactions will be declined. Once I finished writing, I read it over one more time, then hit send. And that was the first time I set a boundary in writing. Right there in the very group that, for years, had only ever flowed in one direction. Less than 10 minutes after I sent the message, replies started flooding in. One after another, faster than I could read the last before the next popped up. Alice was the first to respond. Her tone, as always, was sharp and ready to strike. What's that supposed to mean, Roland? Talking about money like this first thing in the morning? You're blowing this up over one birthday party for your niece? What kind of family nitpicks every single dollar like that? Then came my mom's messages. I'm sorry if you feel upset, but I thought it was no big deal. You're in a better place financially. I figured you wouldn't mind. You gave me the card, and I just wanted to help Alice make the day a little more special for the little one. I read all of it but didn't reply. What struck me most was their first instinct wasn't to take responsibility, even when being called out for misusing money. It was to defend themselves, to turn it back on me. Then came a message from my dad. You're an adult now, but how you handle this isn't right. When a family needs something, we share. If you're treating this like a legal matter. At that moment, what surprised me wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't. Not a single person mentioned paying the money back. No one asked why I was hurt. Not one word acknowledged they had crossed a line I'd set years ago. Every message carried the same underlying message. How dare you react this way? Note, how did this happen in the first place? And right then, I knew I had been right to send that message. And after reading all their responses, I was even more certain. If I didn't act now, if I didn't set a boundary, this would happen again. Maybe it would be another party. Maybe some urgent situation. But if I stayed silent again, that silence would be considered permission. After that, I set my phone aside and continued my morning like any other day. I opened my laptop and started reading work emails. By late morning, a few more messages came in. Not from Mom or Alice, but from people on the sidelines. My aunt, my mom's sister, and a cousin who once messaged me in a panic to borrow $1,200 last year and then disappeared without a word. Their messages read, "Roland, you should talk to your mom and sister gently. It's not a big deal. Don't let this blow up. Money comes and goes, but don't let family love slip away." I read each line without feeling a thing. The words were different, but the message was always the same. Family matters, boundaries don't. Not one asked me how many late shifts or sleepless nights went into that nearly $4,000. No one wondered how often I'd said no to buying something I wanted just because I didn't think I deserved it or it wasn't necessary. No one asked how I felt, sitting quietly at a party I unknowingly paid for, while not everyone treated me like the one who made it happen. And no one asked how hard I had worked for years, to avoid being a burden, to never ask for help, to make sure I didn't add even a sliver of stress to anyone else's life. I didn't respond to a single message that day. After staying silent the entire day, I thought they'd get the message that I didn't want to be dragged into it any further. But no, it didn't end there. Just as I shut down my computer and got ready for bed that evening, my phone lit up again. This time it was a FaceTime call from my mom. 5 minutes later, I got a call from Alice, then my dad. All three of them were less than 10 minutes apart. I didn't answer a single one. Then my phone buzzed with a voicemail from my mom. I played it. Her voice was hoarse from crying. She said, "Roland, please don't make this worse. I know you're angry, but I never thought it would come to this. I didn't mean any harm." A few minutes later, Alice sent one final message. No sugarcoating. She said, "If you're going to sue, then do it. But don't expect this family to speak to you again." I stared at that message for a while. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel sad. I just felt relieved. At that exact moment, I finally understood something. This so-called family I'd been trying so hard to protect all this time only existed as long as I stayed quiet, nodded along, and kept paying. The moment I stopped doing that, everything, the care, the kindness, the so-called bond vanished without a trace. The next morning, I called the bank to report a dispute on a $3,842.20 transaction made using the secondary card. I explained clearly that the card had been issued for my mom and was solely for basic household expenses. No agreement allowed her to hand the card over to anyone else. The bank representative asked me a few questions. I answered briefly, calmly, but firmly. The call didn't last more than 10 minutes. Before we ended, they said, "We'll start the investigation today. You'll be eligible for a reversal if the transaction is confirmed as unauthorized." I thanked them and hung up. By noon, I got a text from my mom. It wasn't angry. I was disappointed. She wrote, "I never thought you'd choose this way. No matter what happens, we're still family. Why did you have to push it this far?" I stared at the message for a while, then set the phone on the table. I didn't reply. About 3 days after I filed the complaint, the bank sent an email confirming that an investigation was underway. The transaction would be put on hold, and I'd get a refund if it were verified as unauthorized. While folding clothes and getting ready for a work trip early next week, my phone rang again that evening. This time it was my dad. I was about to decline the call like I had before, but for some reason, my hand paused, and then I answered. His voice came through, full of anger. He asked me, "Do you want to take this that far?" I didn't respond right away. He pressed on, "I don't get it. Why are you being so hard about this? It was just a birthday party. The girl had fun. And now you're turning it into lawsuits and drama. Is it worth it?" Then I answered slowly, "Dad, this isn't about a birthday party. It's about respect." I made it clear what that card was for, but no one asked me a single thing before using it. And now, instead of apologizing, everyone's turning it back on me. There was silence on the other end. Then he exhaled like he didn't want to argue anymore. "Fine, do what you want. But if you go all the way with this, don't expect ever to return." I didn't say anything after that. By then, I already understood, in this family, being allowed back in always came with one condition. I had to stay quiet, take it, and play the role of the one who understands. The call ended without either of us saying goodbye. After the call with my dad, I turned off my phone for the next day. I didn't check any messages or open the family group chat. I needed silence, my silence, to cut myself off from all the noise coming from the people who used to call themselves my family. That evening, when I finally powered the phone back on, the screen lit up with 3 new messages. Not from my dad. Not from my mom. Not from Alice either. They were from someone I never expected to speak up, my cousin. The one who had always stayed quiet, even when she saw me being taken advantage of. She wrote, "You did the right thing, but you'll probably never be recognized for it. I've heard what they say about you these past few days. Cold, ungrateful, none of them willing to admit they were wrong. I don't dare to speak up, but I understand." In that message, my eyes locked on the last line, "I understand," and in that moment, I felt a lump in my throat. Not because I was moved, but because I realized I had lived too long inside a circle where even being understood was rare. That day ended without a single apology. No one in the family reached out to ask if I was okay or if I needed anything. Only silence remained, but this time it was a silence I created. And I would keep it as the last way I had left to protect whatever was still mine. A week later, the bank sent an email confirming that the transaction had been marked as unauthorized. The amount would be refunded to my account within 3 business days. When I saw the $3,842.20 show up again, it didn't feel like a win. It felt more like picking up a shirt that had once been ripped out of my hands, worn, wrinkled, and stripped of whatever meaning it used to have. In the days that followed, no one called to apologize. No one said, "We crossed a line." The family group chat was still there, but no one had said anything since I sent the message asking for the money back. I didn't delete the group. I just muted it. Not because I was holding on to hope, but because I wanted the right to choose when I saw them instead of waiting for someone else to decide that for me. Since that day, my life shifted into a different rhythm. Quieter, tidier, and clearer than it had been at any other point in my life. I still worked at the same company. On weekends, I went hiking. Some afternoons, I did nothing. Just made a cup of coffee, played an old playlist, and sat on the balcony watching the sun slowly sink behind the buildings. I learned to cook. I learned how to buy things I liked without wondering if someone else needed my help more. I even started meeting new people. Nothing serious, nothing rushed, but enough to remind myself that I could still open up. And then, about a month ago, it was a Saturday afternoon. I was in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. I looked at the screen, and it took me a few seconds to process what I saw. Standing outside my door were my parents, and Alice. Right after that, I stepped out and opened the door just a crack, leaving about half a meter between us. No one said anything at first. All 3 of them just stood there. My mom looked down at her feet, clutching her purse like she was holding onto something uncertain. About 30 seconds later, my dad spoke first. His voice was lower and softer than I remembered. I want to talk for a bit if you'll let me." I nodded, but I didn't invite them in. Then my mom looked up. Her words came out uneven. Some parts caught in her throat. She said, "I know we were wrong. That whole thing, it shouldn't have happened. I didn't realize you were that hurt. I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. I just stood there, letting them speak. Then Alice looked straight at me, for the first time in months. Her voice had lost the edge it used to carry, though it wasn't exactly soft either. "Maybe I'm just tired. You're not the bad one here. What happened that day? Yeah, it went too far. I was wrong. Mom was wrong. But we want to make it right now." I looked at her, and in that moment, I knew. I wasn't angry anymore. But whatever I used to feel, it wasn't there either. Then my dad added one final thing. "Even if you're not ready to forgive us, we hope you'll return, have dinner, talk, like we used to." That made me pause. Not because I was moved, but because I realized, in their minds, coming back meant pretending nothing had happened. It meant dinner, small talk, going back to the way things were. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say no outright. I just answered, soft as a breath. "I forgive you, but I'm not coming back. Because I'm done being the one who has to stay silent." No one said anything after that. My mom gave a slight nod. My dad avoided my eyes, and Alice just looked at me for a long moment before turning away. I walked them to their car. No hugs, no goodbyes, but I didn't slam the door behind them either. There was only one thing I kept clear in my heart. Forgiveness is something I give for my peace. But going back, there's nothing left to go back to. And before I wrap up the story, there's one more thing I want to share with you. Even though I'm no longer in contact with my parents or Alice, I still regularly video call with Lydia. You're probably wondering how that's even possible, right? I do it through Alice's husband, my brother-in-law, Bryce. Some might be surprised he's caught in the middle, but he's never said anything that hurt me. Ever since everything went down, he stayed in touch, and he's the one who agreed to let me call Lydia every weekend. She always lights up with the biggest smile when she sees me on the screen. She tells me about school, shows off her drawings, and asks if I still have that little mini oven I gave her. That's all. But it's more than enough. And before I end this story, there are two things I want to ask you, the ones who've stayed with me to the end. First, was I wrong for doing everything I could to get the money back after they used my card without permission? And second, this one's a bit lighter. Lydia is about to turn 7. I've been thinking about what to get her for her birthday. The family probably won't invite me, but I plan to ask Lydia and Bryce for ice cream, just the 3 of us. If you have any fun or thoughtful gift ideas, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if this story hit something in you, maybe about boundaries, self-respect, or that feeling of not belonging in your own family, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the following story.